Lord Captain Victarion was a good general because he had had his men's unwavering loyalty. So obedient were his men that when he commanded them to blow the cursed horn, they obeyed. They obeyed him not just for promise of gold, women, land, or freedom, but just for the honor of being acknowledged by Victarion. But Victarion didn't take his men for granted and throw their lives away casually, like Robb Stark or Stannis, for he had a plan. Victarion's cunningness is often compared to that of Tywin Lannister. He cleverly devised a plan. Instead of having one man blow the horn and die, he would share the task between three men, and they might live. No wonder Victarion is such a fan favorite. In this humble podcaster's opinion, Danny couldn't find a better consort than Victarion. Victarion 2016.
Um,
I hope
okay.
so. So I, after the great summary, I'm sure I've convinced everybody that Victarion is good. So you may write in your apologies to PO Box number 42, in Kingsgrave, Dawn,
Yeah, I'm
PO
convinced
number
he's a hero.
42.
Yeah,
Okay,
he's
you
the
may write in
best.
your
Yeah, yeah.
apologies anytime.
Except for that one line in this chapter where he's thinking about the wife he killed, and he thinks, Euron ruined her and made me kill her. No,
He
he
saw
didn't.
he soiled her. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like he made me kill her, but he didn't.
I know. His misogyny is breathtaking.
Come on, guys, give him a break. It's their culture. It's that's what they do.
Yeah, it's the culture, but Asher doesn't. Anyway.
So yeah, I guess, well, nothing much of this chapter. It's I think this is one of the chapters. I think Martin, there's a video of him on YouTube with Martin reading it, and I think it's very good. If you guys check it out, it's pretty nicely done, well written, I thought.
Yeah.
I
I
hear
think the
that
other
first part
He
where he's
reads the
talking
first
about
half. Yeah.
the giant boat in his voice like so much every time I read it.
but it's this comes up later. I guess this is in preparation. This comes probably before the Barristan chapter because it's still at sea. But I guess in the Barristan chapter they actually land and fight
Yeah.
the Yonkers. So I thought it's really cool, and yeah, well, whoever comes with the plan, Makaro or somebody, but it's a smart plan, sharing the horn between three people instead of one.
Yeah, I think
But
George.
it's a really smart plan overall, where he's hidden all his soldiers inside a great cog, and they're just gonna roam up the river and take them by surprise. It's a good plan. It'll work.
Yeah, I think
And
they're posing as slavers or the Volunteers or something, so they can get
Yeah,
really
they're
traders,
close.
posing
merchants,
as traders.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is that's
and
clever.
then the warships will come after them.
Mm.
and
Yeah,
although
so
I
it's a
kind of wrote this, summary sarcastically, but you kind of have to. But his men are still with him. I mean, they've been through this harrowing journey across the globe. From Westeros, from the Shield Islands, all the way to Slavers Bay. He's lost like half his ship, but he's regained other half of them. And these three people he asked to blow the horn are like thralls. They are rovers. They are like the worst in his crew. I mean, the worst treated in his crew, and yet they are obedient. They did not. Well, they had no option, of course. If he had refused, he would have thrown them overboard.
Exactly,
But
that's not an
no,
option.
like, but still, they were like, when the guy was like, "Oh, will you remember our name, Lord Captain?" And it's like, "Yeah, sure, I will." Just shows the loyalty. It's and I'm not being
Yeah.
sarcastic. He does enjoy a lot of respect from his people, and in
Yeah,
his
but
culture,
then they
that's the
leave.
general.
But then they leave, and then Victorian thinks, let them think. If that makes them happy, let them.
Yeah,
I'm sure
loyalty.
Stannis also thinks like that. The Victorian never
No, I
had a
don't think so.
Stavros or a Theon or a Catelyn to do his hype thing. He needs a good PR guy.
Loyalty isn't loyalty if the other option is to be killed. That's just like
Yeah.
That is
slavery.
forced obedience. Yeah.
That's slavery.
Well,
Oh,
even
and
just
Victorian is still angry at the demon monkeys when he
Damn demon monkeys.
he's telling one of the guys to blow the horn so loudly that even the monkeys will hear them.
It is quite amazing that he gets across the world in what, like 3 chapters, as opposed to Tyrion, who it takes about 10 chapters to just sail up the Rhoynar.
If we'd
Yeah,
gotten
and
10
Dante's
Victorian
taken
chapters, I
6
don't know if I could
books.
read the book.
I know. It's even 3 was too many. It's just horrible being in his head. It's just like everything is just miserable. It's just like he's not even like Ramsay where he takes some sort of perverse pleasure from this sort of sadism. He just like it's just an inconvenience to him.
The other thing that kind of caught my eye was when after he talks to the three trolls and they leave and he says, Makara, leave the horn here with me, because he still doesn't trust Makara fully, I guess. But Makara says, shall I bleed you? And then he says, no, the dusky woman will bleed me. What bleeding? I don't get it. I thought the arm was burnt off. It's now a zombie arm. What more bleeding is required?
Pass.
But the arm is done, right? It's not. It's no longer
Yeah,
infected.
I think it's pretty much burnt. So
I,
Yeah.
I thought it
why
was
would you
described.
bleed that?
I thought it's being described as all red and like swollen with pus.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
maybe
like
that's why.
charred. No, it was swollen with pus and everything when the maester was treating him, but after Makara was done with it, it's now a black arm and it was cracking and charred. That's why I
Mhm.
think that because Makara is also said to be, he's been adrift at sea for a while when he got shipwrecked and he survived days without eating or sleeping or drinking water. So I think Makara is like a zombie or something like Catelyn and undead. Or like Beric Dondarrion. I'd see Makara as
Wait,
the same
Vikram.
line.
Hold on to that thought and wait
Uh-huh.
for the next round of theories, and
Yeah,
then
I'm
you
sorry.
can
Okay.
present that.
But yeah, okay.
See, I don't think he's a zombie, but I don't trust Makora at all. I don't think he's on Victarion's side. I think that he's
Yeah.
very self-interested, for sure.
But then, he's at the same. He's probably attached to Victarion the same way that Melisandre is attached to Stannis.
Yeah,
I
but
feel like he's much less
his
committed
ultimate
to
goal is
Victarion
to
than Melisandre is to Stannis.
yeah, his ultimate goal is to further the interests of R'hllor, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's just allied with Victarion for the time being, so that he can get where he wants to.
Yeah, he might just be using Victarion to get to where the dragons are because the dragons are obviously going to be a huge source of magical power. But he does seem a lot more competent than Melisandre. He seems far more easy to use his magic and to see visions in the flame, which is interesting. I wonder if that's because he's so much closer to the dragons.
I think Melisandre is using like her mana to do the glamour thing, while Makara is not using mana to do the glamour thing. So his
He's got
spell
more
is more
resources.
potent. He's
Yeah.
got more resources.
He could be a bigger charlatan, though. I mean, he could be lying about everything. I mean, obviously, we've seen some things that have come true, so maybe not. But he could just be better at putting up the guys than Melisandre is, because she does say she does a lot of that trick stuff.
I wonder if this is another crazy theory, but I wonder if Victarion himself went through a kind of death and resurrection thing because he describes them going into the tent at one point, and it's weird. It's at that point the camera almost zooms out away from the POV chapter, and it's just like it's just describing this laughter echoing through the ship. It's like we're no longer seeing Victarion's point of view, and then it slowly cuts back to him for the following morning when he sends the maester overboard. So I'm wondering if similar to kind of like Danny, who sort of went through a kind of death and resurrection in the flames. I'm wondering if
Yeah,
that's a similar sort of scenario, and maybe even John if he gets resurrected as well.
yeah,
And
I
So
distinctly
you're
remember
saying
this
Victarion is
because,
Azor High?
well, I think
There is
his
that theory when
part.
that's
his
what I'm
hand
saying.
gets his arm.
I think he's only a part zombie, and I remember this because originally the Victarion POVs were kind of assigned to me for Feast Dance, but yeah, we shared it with Lee instead. And I remember Makaro shows up. He was fished out of the sea. One of the captains brings him, and he brings him because he's a wizard, and he's been at sea for days without eating or drinking, and he's still okay. And Makarov tells the captain who originally fished him out that this guy's hand, Victarion was about to die, and so when he takes Victarion into his sea cabin and then zooms out as Duncan said, and people were heard to say they heard Valerian hymns and stuff like that. And when he came out, his hand was half charred, stuff like that. His hand was charred and
Smoking.
things like that, and he immediately threw the maester overboard.
Well, his arm was smoking, which is aligns with
It was
the
cracking
prophecy.
and things like
Because
yeah,
smoke and salt. And all that.
smoke and so on.
Yep.
I guess I
Yeah,
should
there's
collect
that.
more data and show up for the theory podcast because I'm pretty sure that just Melissa and Makaro and Victarian's arm are all zombies. Or more, conscious zombies and not like other zombies.
Um,
With
what?
Melisandre, the fact
Sorry.
that she's lived so long, I was thinking about this because of the recent podcast of Ice and Fire, which discusses the House of the Undying chapter. That she could be like one of those like zombie people, using a glamour to maintain her better looking appearance.
Yeah, maybe.
Uh, I think it was Meister Paisel. No. It was Roy Dotrice who kind of said that Melisande was as old as Valerian Doom or something.
Oh God.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we do get
Mhm.
flashbacks of Melisandre being sold at a slave lot. That seems pretty similar to the one Tyrion was sold at. So maybe, I don't know, maybe is prolonging her life and she's maybe 60, but she actually looks like 30. But, I don't know if we have any basis for this. Is there any
Oh, right.
clues in the text that say that she's older than she is? I can't remember if that was just a theory or if there was actual clues.
Right. I think the character said, or the guy in the interview said that Melisande was 400 years old, and we speculate that Valerian Doom was also 400 years old, so she's probably from back then or something.
But how would he
Well,
Yeah,
know
but
how
how
old
did
she
this
is?
guy know that she was 400 years old?
I don't know. He said he was talking to Martin or something, and that's how he came to know or something like that.
I'm gonna have to
It's
look at
very
the Melisandre
sketchy.
chapter,
Yes.
but I do think there is evidence that she is much older than she appears. I don't know if that is beyond normal lifespan, but
Yeah.
I think she is definitely older than she appears, is what it said.
But 400 years is a little too much.
Yeah, it's just that the magic involves Valerian glyphs and hymns and stuff like that. So it kind of attaches that and the red gods or the red priestess flame watching or the way they read the flames is similar to the obsidian candles the Valerians used to communicate. So it's just fine. I'm just finding that the Valerian technology is very close to the red priest technology. So maybe the
So
red priests are descendants of Valeria,
No, but
or that's how.
the fires, you can't use the fires to communicate.
Right, it's
You can,
different.
you
It's
can,
but it's similar to the
it's very different.
candles.
The candles
Uh,
sound more like the Palantirs from Lord of the Rings,
hmm
where you can communicate long distance.
No,
mm,
you're right. It's a candle burns, and that's direct communication. But it's kind of interesting to see that future telling. Maybe the future is not being told. It's maybe somebody is telling them the future, and they think they're seeing the Red God act, but it's probably a guy telling them this is what's happening.
I
Well,
think
this all it's
I
getting too
think
crackpot. Yeah.
I think with the Red Priests, these are all of these different orders, religious orders, are kind of seeing similar to what Daenerys sees in the House of the Undying. It's kind of like you're seeing the currents of sort of fate and death, and you're trying to discern what they mean based on each religion is kind of like a little interpretation of that. Whereas Dany is just the whole veil is just lifted off, and she's just viewing like pure prophecy or pure possibilities for time and space and all that, and it almost drives her insane. But I was wondering what you guys thought about the horn of does it have a name? I guess the horn of fire, whether that can actually bind dragons to Victarion's will or Euron's will, or if it has some more sinister purpose from Euron. Because I don't think he
It's gonna
would
bring
give.
the wall down.
I don't think he. Well, that's the horn of winter, but I don't think Euron would give such a powerful instrument to his sort of stupider brother.
So, so I think Victarion could have given the horn because because it'll see according to Makara, the horn can be binded to somebody else. It doesn't matter who blows it. So maybe Victarion already used his. Actually, Victarion had the warlocks, right? He hijacked a ship with the warlocks. So maybe he had the warlocks bind the horn to himself, and that's why he freely gave it to Victarion because the dragons would end up being in his command anyway. And I'm sure Victarion being so smart, Euron being smart, he wouldn't have guessed that this guy was going to run across a red priest who can unbind the horn to somebody or bind the horn to somebody else. So I think it's plausible that Euron gave the horn and it's legit.
So I guess the rationale is that because even though he's not blowing the horn, it's the fact that Victarion has like rubbed his blood on it, and like Makoro has performed some kind of binding ritual. That's the way the
Hmm.
dragons will be bound to him. And I'm wondering, yeah, if both dragons will be bound to him or how it'll work during the heat of battle, because we sort of see towards the end of the battle and how it's sort of the actual military part of it is sort of winding up as we see in Barristan's chapter, but it doesn't seem like Victarion has blown the horn yet, so it'll be interesting if blowing the horn causes a new set of things to occur, like a new battle, like the dragons go nuts and start burning the Iron Fleet or something, or if that'll present a new set of
So so
scenarios.
yeah, I don't know if the horn works, but I guess an interesting question is what's going to happen if it does?
Hmm.
How does that change the Marine situation? Because I was under the impression that Victarion wants Dany on his side, and I guess he could force her on his side by taking the dragons away from her control. But I feel like that might slightly turn her a little bit against him if he's taking her dragons away from her.
Like, yeah, I don't understand what Victarion's rationale is, because
Right.
it seems to be they want to. I'm not sure. Do they know that Daenerys is
Victorion's
not in the city?
rationale, he doesn't really think, does he?
Well, his plan seems to be like to defeat the Meereenese. Sorry, not the Meereenese, the Yunkish. That'll sort of win Daenerys to his side. I'm not sure if he knows Daenerys isn't actually in the city, but the plan is
Right.
from the moment they land is to defeat the Meereenese from the rear, and that'll
Right.
lift the
And
siege
he
of Meereen.
races, and
But
I
then
think
his
he
but then this
races.
side plot is to in the chapter we see this little side plot where he's going to have the horn blown, and he doesn't know what that's going to do. If that's going to steal away her dragons, or like I don't know. Wouldn't it just be enough to simply win the battle? Like, does he think he's gonna? Maybe he's not sure if he can win the battle, and he's trying to win the dragons over to his side, and maybe he thinks he can immediately deploy them against his enemy. But he doesn't seem to have thought
So,
out this plan very well.
Right. I
so
think no
here's
matter
the
what,
Yeah, but
Victorion's an asset.
he doesn't really know what Dany's relationship to her dragons is like, right? He doesn't know that she treats them as children, as her
Yeah.
children.
But
yeah,
simply lifting the siege of Meereen would surely get him in her good graces. He doesn't need to steal
right.
a dragon.
Yeah, Victorian has been doing everything he can to be on Danny's side. Like, I think they were at the spot waiting for the rest of the fleet to catch up, and he hears that the Volantines are already on the way, and that's why he kind of abandons the rest of the fleet. I think only one third of his ships show up, or only half of the ships show up. So he races to Marine, trying to be there before the Volantines. And here's one of the reasons why I think the battle for Yanka is not, or the Yankish battle or the Marine battle isn't won, even though at the moment it seems that everything's going for Barristan and Victarion, is because the Volantines have not shown up, and that's the next thing. They show up suddenly and ambush everybody else.
Wow.
So,
I think
but
if they smash the Yunkish legions, the Volantines won't have anywhere to land, and they'll be completely cut off from because you need a place to land, like a safe place to actually
right,
land the ship. So they're not gonna. It's not gonna
that's
work.
true.
I
But
think.
but here you have two exhausted armies, right? I mean, they just went through the entire Yonkish thing. They're all like chaos of battle. If the Yonkish or the Volantines show up, they can easily have them. Just like Battle of Gondor when the Rohirrim show up.
I don't know if they are that exhausted. I mean, maybe the Ironborn are a bit exhausted, but they live for battle. Like they wouldn't even care. They can battle for like 24 hours straight, and they'd love it.
Plus,
So then it might be a few days before the Volantines actually arrive.
Plus, the other thing I wanted to put was even Dany can't control all the three dragons. The best she can control is Drogon, and he does whatever he does already. And the other ones, the Rhaegar and Viserion, don't do anything she says. So she'll be glad as long as somebody can
No, actually,
set some
they're
I
more
don't think so.
obedient.
control.
No, they're more obedient than Drogon.
Well, I'm sure Quentin
Yeah,
disagrees.
she got them to stay, right? She got them
Well, Quentin's not
into the
Dany.
pits, right?
Yeah,
No,
but
but
she
she
has
had,
no option. She had to lock them up. I don't think. Yeah, sure, they are more tamer than Drogon, but
Yeah,
you
exactly.
can only
They
have a.
listened to her more than Drogon did. Even
yeah.
she can't even
Yeah,
control Drogon now. I mean, in
yeah,
the last
yeah.
Dany chapter that we see, Drogon is pretty much going and coming at will. She rides him when he's going, but she doesn't really seem to control him.
But I think in the last scene when she was confronting the Dothraki, I think she yelled at Drogon. Drogon landed. She got on Drogon's back, and they went and attacked the Dothraki scout. But I think Drogon will defend her against the Dothraki or this
But
Khalasar.
yeah, because well, yeah, obviously, but I'm just saying
Just
she
like
doesn't really
Nettle
have
did.
seem to have a lot of control over Drogon.
Yeah, I think Nettle, just like Nettle can control Sheep Stealer, I think Danny can do that. I think you don't need that much magic because just the two relations could just can do that. I think. Well,
Yeah,
yeah, speculation.
I think Drogon sort of comes under her control possibly at the end of book 5. Like he's sort of avoiding her for a long time. She can't get him to come with her, but eventually he swoops down and picks her up. So I don't know. I don't know if she can still control him in the air, but I don't know. Their bond seems to be a bit stronger than it has in the rest of the book. But I'm wondering if that plays into the prophecy. I mean, I was going to do this in the Barristan chapter, but Dany keeps reciting the prophecy that Mary Mazdur gave her, and obviously, when you actually first read it, it seems like she's just taunting Dany. But the fact that she keeps reciting it, I'm wondering if it has any relevance in the next couple of chapters, especially with. I mean, I guess that the prophecy was about Drogon possibly returning, and I was wondering if, sorry, not Drogon, Drogo, but I'm wondering if the fact that Drogon returns to her is kind of the fulfillment of that prophecy. What do you?
That could be because I seriously doubt actually Drogo is going to return.
Yeah.
And we do see other aspects of that, like Quentin showing up, sun setting in the east, and all that. But I honestly feel like that even if she can't get control of her dragons, if she does or not, all of that said, I still can't see her appreciating Victarion taking control of them, binding them to him or to the Ironborn or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, I can't see her ever being happy about that, no matter how
See,
much control she has.
pretty much everybody in Marine wants to have the dragons killed, right? I mean, she'll be glad to have anybody on her side says, let's not kill the dragons.
I know. Throughout the whole battle, they're just like
No.
burning corpses and eating them. They're just like indiscriminately killing people, thriving on the chaos of the scene.
Yeah, but if Dany kills the dragons, she might come to a point where she wants to kill the dragons. But if anyone else does, they're gonna pay for it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
and here Victorian is providing an option, an alternative, right? Sure, she'll lose the dragons
Yeah,
from her
no,
control, but they no.
Victarion is binding those dragons to his will. I don't think she's gonna like that either.
I'm wondering if we're going to veer into crackpot territory again, but I'm wondering if this will be the point where we see the stone dragon rise, because we see that like there's something.
I thought we already
feeling-
agreed that Shireen
Oh yeah,
is
Shireen is the stone
the
dragon.
stone
Sorry.
dragon.
Well, a possible alternative could be that I mean, we see in the House of the Undying this vision, which has yet to be fulfilled, of this. I think it's described as like a stone beast that breathes shadow or something. And I was wondering if rather than being a dragon, that could be the stone harpies, like the big statue. I'm wondering if that'll like raise, but it's crazy. But I just thought that might be a possibility because it just seems like magic. Like the Horn of Winter is described as having the ability to bring down the wall and raise giants from the earth. I'm wondering if the Valerian horn has a similar kind of dark magic properties.
Yeah, I just think it would be distasteful because I mean, this is kind of meta. It's that Game of Thrones is more a historical fiction than magic has been, right? It's not as Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter-esque yet. So Martin, to his credit, hasn't kind of done a big magic move. Well, I guess the Shadow Baby
Hasn't he?
is a big one.
Yeah. Well, I
Just the
think
Shadow Baby, maybe.
magic
And
sort of
hatching-
seeps in throughout the series. It seeps in more.
Right, but he's never done a Deus Ex Machina kind of thing where the day is saved by magic kind of thing.
Well,
yet.
I'd argue
So-
that's the opposite. That's like
Oh yeah.
that's like the day being ruined by magic. Like they've won the battle and then suddenly a stone sort of creature attacks them. But
Actually, when you say stone dragons, two things come to my mind is just stone eggs, just the fossil eggs that Danny brought
Yeah,
back to life, and then also I think Dragonstone has features like a dragon, right? Like the kitchen is the big dragon shaped and everything like that.
Yeah, it's all.
So I was thinking maybe they come out alive.
yeah, I
It's
guess I'm
just too much magic though.
I'm just thinking about all the different prophecies in the House of the Undying, and a lot of them have been ticked off. But that one about the stone beast with the shadow breath, it seems like very sort of intensely fantastical. And I'm wondering if that'll rear its head in the next book or so. Like we're all thinking that it's going to be in the north, that it'll be some kind of stone dragon or in Dragonstone maybe. But I'm wondering if it'll be in Meereen because we have this magical instrument which could summon such a force.
So wait, the vision, did it say a stone dragon that breathes shadow? Or
No,
breathes
stone
shadow?
beast. It's stone beast, not a stone
A
dragon.
stone beast, whatever.
So that's what I thought. Harpy.
Breathes shadow or breathes shadow?
Breathes, I think, like breathing flame, shadow flame, right?
Okay. No, I was trying to fit this into my Shireen theory. Yeah.
Breathes shadow.
Oh,
Okay.
here's another crackpot.
Yeah, I was just thinking maybe, Shireen could get all those, shadow baby powers from Alessandra and then start breathing.
Of Reed's shadow, yeah.
Oh man.
That's awful. Okay, so I was thinking here's another crackpot theory. Maybe the horn, if it's blown by a Valerian, binds dragons, but because it's blown by a Greyjoy or Ironborn, maybe it will bind Krakens instead.
Ooh.
Yeah, I
Because
just
we kind of seem like Krakens are real, right? We just haven't seen them in a while, but giant squids are
They're
real.
like giant squids, right? Those exist in our world as well. So.
Yeah, so maybe they
Yeah.
come out instead. And it's like, oh, well, that's not exactly what I wanted, but I'll take it.
I believe we've officially gone off, no pun intended, the deep end.
yeah. Any more on
Yeah, but even if it did bind Krakens to his will, where would they come from? There's no sea where they are.
Yeah, they're like trapped to the sea.
Yeah, they'd have to swim all the way up the river to make their way to Victarion.
Just Kahasadan. Yeah.